Let's discuss the attributes of objects. So attributes are basically the appearance, things that are applied to objects for their look, for their visual aesthetics. So for typographic attributes, we would have things like the specific font. We would have, of course, our color, or things like leading or horizontal scale. Most typically, you're going to look at attributes on objects. So I'm going to go ahead and create some boxes here. I'm going to click and drag holding my Shift key. That allows me to create a perfect box. Then, if I use my selection tool, which again, quick key is V, and it's going to take a while to learn these quick keys, so don't think that you have to know them right away. But with my selection tool, hold down the Alt key, I get a double arrow, and that's how you always tell. Control key does something else. Alt key, see my double arrow, that's the one I want. And that will drag a copy. So I'm able to drag copies out, and I just keep dragging. I'm holding Shift actually to constrain it, because that will constrain it vertically and horizontally. Okay, so I've got a few boxes out there. So now let's put some attributes on them. And at this point, we really only feel comfortable with strokes and fills. We haven't really talked about other attributes at this point. So I'm just going to select some different colors, and easiest way is just, you know, some simple color here. Now remember, I can have my object selected, and I can choose to have a color. Or I can drag a color over top of a non-selected item, and that will also allow me to change some colors. Okay, so we kind of have some colors going on out here now. This is sort of an analogous color scheme for those of you that are interested in color harmonies and ways colors mix together, because these are colors right next to each other on the color wheel. We call that analogous. So my artistic attributes at this point are just to fill color. So we have a tool over here. It's the eyedropper tool. Okay, that's kind of an easy one to remember. I for eyedropper. So eyedropper allows us to sample up a color. Let's sample up this color, and I'm just going to click. You can see my mouse is still held down, but you see how I've got a darkened area at the end of my eyedropper. That's allowing me to kind of suck up those attributes, whether it's the fill color, the stroke color, or other types of things on here. And when I navigate to another object, I need to hold down my Alt key. Look at what happens. So regular with Alt. With the Alt key, my eyedropper tool flips, indicating I'm ready to dump it. It dumps the attributes. There we go. So I sample up by just clicking with the eyedropper, go to another object, hold down the Alt key, and this object is not selected. They don't have to be selected. And I hold down the Alt key, and I've copied those attributes. Okay. One other piece that just is helpful that you should know as we're going through drawing. So I'm going to go to my pen tool. If I click and drag some sort of an object here, notice that I'm going to hold down my Control key to deselect. What Illustrator has done, this is just a path. Okay. Be careful with this, because Illustrator, if there's a fill, it will attempt to fill it, and you'll get some really kind of weird things happening, because what Illustrator does is makes a straight line, no matter where this happens to be, between the starting and the ending point. So it's always good when you're drawing to make your stroke be none, your fill be none, and your stroke be a simple black color, something that you can see, whatever it happens to be that's more visible for you. You can always change those colors later on. So this also is considered an open path. The beginning and the ending point are not the same. Okay, so these fills, you end up getting some pretty interesting effects, because Illustrator does just like, all right, here's my beginning, here's the end, let's draw a straight line, and we'll try to fill it. All right, so when I have a closed shape, and if I do a simple closed shape here, we'll just do some sort of an organic shape. So now this is closed, and I can contain my fills. My beginning and my ending point are the same. I always joke, this is like the fence the cows can get out. This is a good fence the cows can't get out. Okay, so a closed shape is closed. Nothing can get out, and that allows me to contain my attributes. All right, so that just to explain if we, oops, we didn't get it all. That's because I'm using my direct selection tool, I'm clicking and dragging, I'm hitting certain points that time I get it. But what happens is when you do that, this is really common actually, you forget you're on your direct selection tool, you click and drag, you get the points that actually are selected, but the points that aren't selected don't delete because they're not active, and then you press your delete key, things delete, but then there's still things active because what wasn't selected becomes selected, if that makes sense. Anyway, this is how we end up with these stray points where you don't see it, but it's still there. So you want to make sure that you're keeping a clean artboard. Okay, a couple of other just features. We can lock objects under Object and Lock. I can lock my selection right now. I can lock all the artwork above. We'll talk about stacking order in a moment. And we can lock all other layers. Same thing with hide. I can hide the selection, I can hide all artwork above, or I can hide other layers. So if I hide it, it doesn't print. If I lock it, it's still there, I just can't select it, it will print. Okay, so then to get that undone, you would go under Object and Unlock All. I also want to show you the layers. I know there hasn't been a whole lot talked about or discussed regarding layers, but I want to show you that. So in Illustrator, everything potentially can be on one layer, but within that one layer we have sub layers, and in this case we can see that we have all of our objects on their own sub layer. So that's how Illustrator works. Look at this. Here's the lock icon. So I actually can toggle this without having things be selected even. I could go through and lock all of these. Now I can't select anything. Okay, so I can lock and unlock here. I also can make visible or hide in my layers panel as well. So to me, my layers panel, a lot more handy, much faster than going over here to Object and choosing the menu item. Okay, so most of the time that's what you're going to do. You also can select objects here by clicking the little target icon, little circle, and it actually makes double circles, and you indicate it, an indicate selected art icon also pops up. So this is a fast way, especially if it's really hard to get something selected, fast way, easy way to get that one object selected. The stacking order, if I were to right click, I can arrange and I can bring front, forward, backward, back. Bring front brings it all the way to the front of the stack. Back sends it all the way to the back. Now forward and backward goes one level. Let's just make this visible so that we can see visually what's going on. Oops, I have my stroke on front. Don't want that. So let's did it again. Make sure my stroke is set to none and my fill is on top. Here we go, now the fill is on top. Got to watch that. So we'll just choose some different colors here. Let's do something that's a bit more noticeable. Okay, we've got different colors. Now if I just put that back away, you can see my little icons and layers indicate my colors. You can see that a bit more. So if I were to click on, say, this rectangle here, even though they're not overlapping, I can still arrange the stacking order. So let's bring this to front. See what happened? Went to the front up here. Let's try to do some overlaps and you'll maybe see and understand a little bit better what will happen. So by clicking on this, right click. We're not liking it today. There we go, right click, send to front, all the way to the front. So this is, you know, you just saw I had a little bit of a trick trying to get the right thing selected here because it wasn't liking what I had to have it selected first. It wasn't liking me just taking an unselected object and right clicking. I need to have it selected first, then right click. So why don't we just go over here to layers and rearrange that way. Okay, so I can rearrange my stacking order in layers. Again, a little bit quicker, maybe a little bit easier, less prone to error. So that's something to think about. So I can make visible, I can hide or show, I can lock or unlock, and I can change stacking order. All right, so those are the attributes that I can play with in my objects.